And now to something else we're watching this morning, a Fox News alert. We are waiting to hear from the family of Riva Steenkamp right now. Her boyfriend, Olympian Oscar Pistorius, is accused of killing her in South Africa. Well, that South African sprinter was in court just a few hours ago, and he broke down while he was in court, broke down in tears. Prosecutors upgrading the charges to premeditated murder in the Valentine's Day killing of his fashion model girlfriend. He is the first double amputee to ever compete in the Olympic Games, earning the nickname Blade Runner for his carbon fiber prosthetic legs. Rod Wheeler is a former D.C. homicide detective, and he's a Fox News contributor. He joins us now to talk about this case. You know, yesterday when we were talking about this, we thought the charge might be murder. Today, waking up, it's premeditated murder. What do you think cops have on him?
Well, you're exactly right. Apparently, the police have learned new information, Heather, pertaining to this murder. Now, the question remains here, was there a note of some type? And how coincidental that this murder was in right at the same time as Valentine's Day? And whether or not there was some other type of communication between Oscar and Miss Riva, you know, prior to her going over to his home. So I think once the police learned all of that information, then they decided to up the charges from just murder to premeditated murder, which, of course, simply means that this had to be a planned event.
Right. You know, we're also hearing stories that some of the neighbors were reporting some screaming or perhaps some sort of arguing, perhaps coming from his house. Could that have played a role in this?
Well, I think that's going to play a significant role in it. And let me just quickly explain to you why
in the upgrading of the charges?
Yes, it could, because depending upon, remember, first of all, this guy, Oscar, said that he thought the person was an intruder coming into his home. Well, once the police arrived on the scene, they found out that the evidence was not consistent with what he was saying. For example, there was no signs of forced entry. So if there's no signs of forced entry, there's no other signs of a struggle. The only thing we have is this guy with the weapon shooting her, and you have the witnesses saying that they heard an argument prior to the murder. All of these things combined will obviously be a factor in the court case, Heather.
Rod, the autopsy on the victim is taking place today. What specifically will they be looking for?
Excellent question. There's a lot of ballistic information that we can gain from the autopsy. For example, real quickly, how far was the actual shooter, Oscar in this case, from the victim? You know, whether or not there's any type of injuries on her body that she perhaps sustained prior to being shot. What about injuries on his body? So all of these things from the autopsy will be considered, and I actually think it's going to be part of the overall case, Heather.
All right. Rules in courtrooms are different all across the world. Not as familiar with their system there, but I'm wondering what can be admitted as evidence. We hear about past domestic calls. He was arrested back in 2009 for allegedly assaulting someone. He apparently threatened to break some guy's legs, a guy who was apparently involved with an ex-girlfriend or something like that. Can any of that play into this case here?
Well, here's the thing. In any country, obviously, you can try to get that information in as part of the court case. Obviously, his defense is going to try to argue that it should not be admitted because it's not relevant to this particular case. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the judge over there in South Africa allows that to be part of this case. But again, I think they're going to try to kind of create a profile, Heather, of this guy and saying that this guy was predetermined. He had set out to kill her, and this is why he did it. The motive in this case is what's going to be very interesting because we have not heard that yet, Heather.
Yeah, certainly the motive is what would be key. What would cause this guy potentially to go out and commit this kind of murder? Although prosecutors might try to paint him as some sort of a hothead because he has gotten in a little bit of trouble in the past.
And there's been reports that he's pulled his weapon on someone once before. So all of these things are clearly going to play a role in this case once it, in fact, goes to court, Heather.
Rod, just a couple seconds. He's a big star down in South Africa. Do you think that'll earn him any breaks?
You know, it's hard to say. Obviously, here in the United States, we don't consider that. Over in South Africa, it may play a role in this as well. It will have to wait and see exactly whether or not it will.
All righty. Rod Wheeler, thank you so much. A former D.C. homicide detective and also a Fox News contributor. Watch